What is up, guys? Thank you so much for joining into today's episode. We, of course, wanted to make sure we shouted out our sponsor for today's episode, Tokyo Treat. We want to invite everyone to experience Japan in the comfort of your own home. You can bring Japan to you, right? This snack box has a bunch of different type of things you can try at home. So we've had last time Kit Kats, we had sodas, we had blueberry marshmallows. All the things you can't get here in the States are going to be in this box. And it's amazing. Honestly, I had such a great time trying it last time, and we're so excited to have another episode sponsored by them.
So, as I've mentioned before, I have a history with Tokyo Treat. Tom and I subscribed for a really long time during the pandemic. We had a lot of fun getting to open it up together, watching our favorite animes, and just like kind of eating some of the snacks that were in the box, and even recognizing a few of them from some shows that we've seen. So it's a really great way to like bond over food and to learn a little bit about different cultures through the foods that they eat. And I really love that we get to do it together now as friends and as the Hashira Half Hour. So would highly recommend. It's definitely worth the money and worth the experience to familiarize yourself with a different cuisine.
So this month's theme is Snacktacular Christmas. So Christmas in Japan is really one of the happiest and yummiest times of the year. Tokyo Treat is thrilled to bring you a taste of amazing holiday flavors through a Snacktacular Christmas. Packed with a special edition box full of favorite snacks stamped with Santa's approval, like Kit Kat strawberry chocolate cake. Okay. Christmas Kokuto donut, Christmas cake gummies, Christmas crunch mix, and many, many more.
As we are jumping in and getting ready to eat some of these snacks, Hannah and Brian are already pros at reading some of the hiragana and katakana that's on the packages. I definitely need to brush up and learn a little bit more. So for people like me, the booklet is really helpful to understand, what you're about to eat. This will have your guide to like any allergens that you might need to know about, whether the snack might be suitable or not for vegetarians, which is pretty cool because that does actually apply to me and to Tom. So definitely make sure to take a look at the booklet. And in addition to the dietary information, there's also like just some interesting cultural facts about Japan. There's like this kind of funny little anecdote about how popular KFC is around the holidays, which is kind of fun. That's definitely something that hits close to home here. Some fun like Christmas Eve date ideas, what couples might do in Japan to celebrate Christmas Eve and the holidays, which is very sweet.
They go ice skating. I like that one.
Ice skating, romantic dinner, you can't go wrong. They like to go see illuminations. We definitely have some light displays here in town also. So definitely, I would highly recommend taking a quick look at the booklet, learn a little bit about the month's theme and the snacks that we're going to eat.
Itadakimasu! Honestly, I'm so glad we got Kit Kats again. Literally, if you're listening to this, people from Tokyo Treat, please, Kit Kats.
Just gonna re-eat my favorite right here.
The Kit Kat was pretty awesome.
These chips were my favorite savory though.
Yeah, I think this was just my favorite by and far, I think, in the entire box. These are really, really good, these truffle chips.
I really liked these sour cream crackers. Those are really good because I like that the sour cream wasn't like when you have like American Lay's, they're like in your face, but these like they have a sweetness to them as well as the savory. And so I really like that part. That takes the W for me. Yeah.
Very good holiday box. Thank you so much to Tokyo Treat for sponsoring today's episode of the Hashira Half Hour. If you're interested in getting your own Tokyo Treat box, make sure to check out the link in the description below and use code Hashira for $5 off your first box. Thanks so much. Let's jump into today's episode. Hi everyone, and welcome back, of course, to another episode of the Hashira Half Hour. This week we will be discussing episode 13 of Jujutsu Kaisen's Shibuya Incident arc, and the title of this episode is Right and Wrong. I'll tell you about something that's right. The right way to watch this episode is to skip it. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next week. Oh, if only. All I know is pain. I can never have what I want. And with that, I am joined, as always, by my friends Mina and Brian.
There's nothing to be thankful for this Thanksgiving Day. I'm kidding, by the way. There's lots of things to be thankful for. That's a joke.
But Gay is not on the list.
But Gay is not something I'm thankful for.
Leads me into my statement of actually, welcome back to the planning of the rioting outside Gege's house, aka the Hashira Half Hour. LOL, JK, but seriously, knock it off, Gege. Literally, I'm done with you right now. I'm reading the manga and this is too much. Like, watching everything I've already read happen and then reading more about what's happening. You're doing it to us. You're doing it to us.
Let's just do it. As much as I really, really don't want to talk about this, we have to. So, We, of course, open the episode and see our golden man, Nanami, and he's in pretty rough shape. My sweet, sweet man. He is walking through Shibuya Station. He just got toasted by Jogo. He's looking rough. He's looking like a Batman villain right about now. I have to try to laugh through the pain. So, as he's walking through, I personally thought that the quiet of the station here was really disturbing, considering the loud and chaotic energy of several of the previous episodes that we've just seen. What were your thoughts on this opening and this introduction as he quietly reflected? He was walking past Mahito. Mina, for you, did this moment still feel hopeful or maybe like something else? Brian, how did this compare to the manga for you?
In comparison to the manga, I feel like this was not something that was fully fleshed out, and I'm glad we got to see it animated, because I feel like as I was reading this in the manga, it was like a couple pages. I feel like, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I was like swiping through, and I was like, okay, and I was like, wait, why is he here? And then like 2 more pages of like beating up the bad guys, and then boom, he's gone. And I was like, no! But this was just like, it was just like in Demon Slayer season 3 at the very end, Hannah's favorite episode, where they're just like twisting, and they're like every little moment that they've had together, making sure you feel every piece of pain you can. That's literally what this was.
All I know is pain. I was not hopeful during this sequence because this was the thing that I got spoiled on way back, probably a year ago. I don't remember how I got spoiled. I think it was just Twitter. It was long before I entered the JJK fandom in any way other than I had watched it, and it just like popped up in like one of my feeds on social media. But I knew it was coming. I had consulted with, I believe, you guys plus a couple other manga reader friends to make sure that my expectations on this episode were correct because I felt like it was coming soon. So, was I hopeful? No. Was I comparing it to anything else? Obviously no, because I haven't read the manga, so I don't know what the scene was like. But I do know that anime likes to do that. You know, Demon Slayer's done it. Attack on Titan's done it, where they just take a scene that's very emotionally driven and charged, and they really take their time on it. They like to sit on it. They like to make it more emotional than it is in the manga to make sure that the audience is really feeling the things that they want you to feel. So, was not hopeful, was very sad. I think I was already pretty like emotional just because I could tell. I didn't know when it was going to happen, but like the build up made me emotional for sure.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting to consider, like, when animes do take liberties and they expand upon things, like, is it always for the better? Like, there's, is this moment filler? Like, technically, yes, but in my opinion, it enhances the canon material. So in my mind, it is like canon and also probably consulted on by Gege. Yeah, and it's I don't know. It's interesting to see how the fandom also and like the viewers of the show might be able to inform like some of the decisions that they end up making because as Gege was writing this, in comparison to where we are now in the manga, for the manga readers that know, it's like this is like a long time ago already that some of this came out. People have had a lot of time to like familiarize themselves with these characters and to maybe flock to and adore some that Gege might not have just been expecting when it was initially written. And I think Nanami could have been like one of those surprise hit characters. And so like what is given to us in the manga is really short in comparison to what's here in the anime. And I think that they did that for us partially because he is like so universally beloved that they had to do something to like ease our way into this a little bit more than what it actually was in the comic. So it's very interesting to see the differences. And we have to keep going with this scene because we see Nanami now in the center of the Shibuya like train stop in the basement. He's slashing at the deformed humans, taking out a majority of them. And now that we're seeing this part of the scene, this is a little bit more chaotic, which is really familiar in the JJK universe, especially in the last several episodes we've seen. But it's interwoven with really peaceful moments of Nanami imagining himself on a beach in Malaysia reading the piles of books he has yet to get to and like smiling, which is also quite rare for this sweet man. He's relaxing, he's away from the stress of a 9 to 5 and jujutsu sorcery. And I feel like we know when scenes like this are animated that whatever is coming next is probably not good, but we really want it to be because this is gentle in comparison to things we've seen.
It was really beautifully done. I have to say that this whole time I was watching it, I felt very much like this was him with one foot out the door already, you know? He was half burned. Like, there wasn't really anything coming, like, he wasn't coming back from that already, and I think he was, like, practically hallucinating being on the beach because they were matching all of his movement to the movement he was doing on the beach in his vision. So I thought it was actually a really good depiction of what it might be like to be knocking on death's door like that. I know like none of us know what that feels like, and I think this is an artistic approach of it, but it was really interesting to see how they kind of did that. As far as like when these kind of scenes are animated, whatever comes next is usually not good. I agree. And not necessarily something where it's like, oh, they're imagining themselves in a happy place, but just like I feel like that kind of goes along with the characters that have memories flash before their eyes right before they die, which is a big theme in a lot of different animes is, you know, your life is flashing before your eyes. And I think it's very similar to that where he's imagining the life that he wants rather than the memories that he has, but still kind of disassociating and imagining something that's not real because he's at this point, in my opinion, without Mahito even there yet, like too far gone.
I just think they're his memories of the future, of a future that didn't exist, of a future that could exist. With that being said, I mean, it's like the hero's tale, if you will. Like, some foil has to die to inspire a hero, and unfortunately, this one was so well written into our hearts that, like, it hurts this much to watch. It's really sad, because you kind of see and feel for him in this moment. Like, all he wanted was, like, a vacation. Like, that man represents, like, pretty much every 9 to 5 worker out there. Like, we just want to go to the beach. Like, some of us just closed our laptops like less than 20 minutes ago to try and have a good night, you know? And like all those kings and queens want are a vacation. And I hope they get one.
It's really hard to see, I think, these characters that are so beloved and like we know that like we've heard and or we've read Shibuya is like kind of a shit show. And as well written as it is, it's like it is not without its like deeply tragic losses. So this is rough. So them trying to ease the pain still doesn't really take away from what comes next. Because now Mahito suddenly appears behind Nanami with one hand placed gently on his back. They have a really interesting bit of dialogue here where Nanami says, "I didn't realize you were around," and Mahito says, "I've been here the whole time," and offers briefly to like chat since they go way back. This was a really small moment, but it weighed on me. What did you make of this interaction and the dialogue between them?
This was weird. This was weird to me. Specifically because we didn't even see them to get like to chatting. We didn't even see what they talked about. You can't do that to us and then not even give us like, because like every villain who ends up killing someone in anime is like, you put up a good fight. You really gave me a good 1-2 punch there, or whatever it might be. But we were left so hanging because of the way that the rest of the situation was structured. And it was really sad because, like, Nanami was just, like, at his mercy at that point. He's like, well, I guess if I get a couple more minutes to live, that's great. So he took it for what it was worth, and I didn't like it at all. Even though I'm a Mahito fan, or a Mojito fan, if you will, we'll be okay, I guess. But this is the part where Mahito's true, like, evil and hatred starts to shine, is that, like, he didn't give a shit at all about what came next. Like, he was doing this for fun.
The tone in his voice almost made it sound like he was trying to be, like, gracious and let him, like, talk it out, and then he didn't really, you know? So it was interesting. It was very villain-like. I don't know how to explain it. He sounded so soft when he said, "I've been there the whole time." I almost feel like he was doing that because he knew Yuji was there, and he wanted to wait until Yuji, like, witnessed it happening. That's kind of how I read the situation. And that's like really evil because Yuji is a child.
Oh, sweet Yuji. Yeah, I don't know. I really thought about this moment a lot. And I'm still not sure how I feel about it or what exactly I think they meant in that short dialogue, but I do think it's important. I don't know that I've been reminded of it again yet in the manga, but I feel like it could come back to haunt us. I don't know. There's just something that feels like in any other circumstance that would not be like the appropriate response from Mahito to be like, I've been here the whole time. And I don't because the way that he said it didn't give me the impression that he just means like, oh, I've just been in the basement this whole time. It makes me wonder like what does Mahito represent? Is it like death? Is it, I mean, we know he's born from like the manifestation of hatred, and he's a really powerful manifestation of that. His technique is also interesting. The like soul convergence, where like the reason that all those people get so deformed is because he's trying to merge multiple souls together and they get deformed from like the rejection. I don't know. I think I would need to think about it a little bit more, but I feel like he's giving us like a bigger message, if that makes sense. Like, I don't know. I've been here the whole time. It's very eerie. Very eerie. Something maybe we'll come back to, but of course, the spell of even semi-calmness here has to be broken because our sweet boy Yuji makes his way into the basement and finds Nanami and Mahito and the corpses of thousands of deformed human curses that are the result of Mahito's technique. The broken way that he whispers out Nanami's name, the way Nanami sees Haibara in this moment and has a one-sided discussion with him, and of course, the famous last words, "You've got it from here." I'm like broken apart into a million pieces after having to see this again. Oh, let's just dive in. There's a lot here. What did you think about how this scene was handled?
Emily, any character that you love, I need to stay 10 feet away from.
That is a rule of thumb. It's always the blonde, beautiful men. I'm sick of it here. I'm tired of this, Grandpa.
That's too damn bad. That's anime.
No, for real though. That is anime, and an anime that is willing to kill off characters like this is, in my opinion, a good anime because it's like it's realistic. Like the animes where it's like, okay, we're going into another fight, it's okay because they're all gonna get out of it alive because like they just keep doing that. It's like, okay, all right. Black Clover. I like Black Clover so far. Anyway, this is me coping with the question that I have to talk about. This is the Demon Slayer fangirl, so I'm gonna draw the parallels to Mugen Train and how I felt because this was very, very similar from the way that Yuji was just like had to sit there and watch and couldn't do anything. He was powerless to help. And the way he calls for him and the way that Nanami sees the ghost of a loved one in his last moments, and his last words are saying, "You take it from here." Similar vibes to Set Your Heart Ablaze. Like there's just so much going on here that is like, not again. Not again. But this is anime, and this is part of those stories, and you know, these stories are only going to get harder from where they're at right now, and these stories are a story of pain and a story of war against an evil that they're fighting. They're humans. They're fighting against these essentially non-human things, and bad things are going to happen. So it's really, really hard to watch, but Yuji broke my heart completely.
I think this scene was the hardest to watch because it happened so fast. I think this was also like reading it in the manga. It definitely just was very difficult because I liked Nanami a lot and I didn't want this to happen to him. So I was just like, I was a little upset to see it happen. Not gonna lie, it definitely hit pretty hard. How do I think it was handled? I think he honestly got the Hanji treatment though. Like, he did get such a beautiful scene really leading up to it, and I think kind of to make a similar parallel, if I'm going to go Attack on Titan, right? The last things that she said, or that I guess Levi said to Hanji before they parted was Shinzo Sasageyo. And so there was that similar thing of like seeing all of these people who you have led so far and unfortunately leaving them behind in such a gruesome way. We know it could have been so much worse for them and for us as the viewer to be emotionally distraught by. So I definitely think the scene was handled the best that it could, because character death is never easy for any anime watcher, especially even if you don't like the character. I don't care what you say. If you don't like the character and they die, you still have a little bit of feeling that's still someone dying, okay? I think it's just really difficult to kind of sit there and know that your protagonist was absolutely powerless at this time, because all Mahito needs to do is have his hand on you, and you're at his will.
There are definitely a lot of similarities between like this death and some other really famous deaths in other animes, and I think that some of those other animes can be marked by how powerful some of the deaths are if they're used sparingly and well and are well placed. So obviously this sucks for me, especially. Again, we need to like continue to remember and like bring up the fact that Yuji is the main character in this show, and what's so significant about the deaths in some of the other animes that we've mentioned, Demon Slayer, Attack on Titan, and countless others that have similar scenes, is the way that the death of those side characters impact the main character and drive forward their story. So this is going to be a big one for Yuji. This is like one of his immediate mentors, and actually someone who was probably more helpful than Gojo for him. And definitely somebody who at least acts a bit more selfless. So this is like a really rough one to watch. I also want to quickly call out, again, I mentioned it, but the shots with Haibara were really, really interesting to me also, because for one thing, the dialogue is like one-sided. So you can infer from that it's like Nanami is, seeing different versions of like life flashing before his eyes. And so in some case, like Haibara is exactly or appearing exactly before him as he remembers him, which is like a high school age kid. What's interesting and what differs a little bit is like the lack of response, I think, because, for example, to call back again to the Demon Slayer scene, like Rengoku's mom does actually communicate with him, even though she's probably an apparition, like conjured by his own mind. Haibara does not actually say anything, but the communication almost goes without words. And what they communicate about is also really interesting, because I feel like, again, you can kind of infer that Haibara is suggesting somehow, like, you need to say something to Yuji. Don't let him just, like, see you die right now. Like, you need to say something. And Nanami's response, being, like, as caring as he is like, it's just another curse. Which, of course, is, like, very interesting to refer to anything that way in this world. That specifically mirrors also, like, what Yuji's grandpa had said to him in the very, very first episode. You don't want to be stuck with, like, this curse. And Nanami decides to say something to him anyway. So, like, was Yuji cursed again in this moment? Is it a curse? Is it a blessing? Is it, like, a deeper, I don't know, deeper sense of responsibility? I think that that's going to be important going forward, too. Is Yuji cursed by the people that he surrounds in their moment of death? I don't know. Very, very interesting. And from here, it turns into an all-out brawl between Yuji and Mahito, because poor sweet little Yuji, maybe he is cursed now. He has just experienced so much back-to-back-to-back-to-back trauma in these last several episodes. He's so young, and somehow he has to carry the weight of all of these stages of grief. And he launches first into anger. I feel like rightfully so. So let's spend some time talking about this fight that unfolds between him and Mahito, and let's share what we thought was most powerful about it, anything that you found interesting, and of course, let's talk about the animation here as well.
Yeah, this fight scene didn't really make sense in the manga, to me at least. And this episode was really helpful for me, because I didn't really understand that they were being like pushed into the like almost lane of the hallway, if you will, because like I don't even know what to call it. The like block that Mahito built was like blocking them into this like lane, and that didn't translate for me. I thought they were fighting in an open hallway, kind of like Choso. So that really helped a lot. Just going back through some of the fight scenes, the exchanges were really good and really clean. The one part I want to call to is when they both walked out of it, when the block and then they were like, oh, round 2. I thought that was a really interesting way to kind of continue the fight. Overall, I know that the MAPPA animators are being overworked, but my god, they're still putting out like beautiful animation. So thank you again to all of the MAPPA animators who are doing their darndest to give us a good show every week. MAPPA CEO, please revisit your policies, all of them. But yeah, that's kind of all I have to say about the fight, because I know that this fight means a lot to Emily, so I want to let her give a moment to it too.
Yeah, I don't have much else to add to the fight scene. As someone who didn't read the manga, I need to rewatch it a few more times to understand fully what was going on, but the thing that I wanted to call out to the most was Mahito's using Junpei's face was like, that hurt, because all the way back in season 1, and that was really when things started kind of going wrong for Yuji, I feel like. It has been a while since I've watched season 1, but I feel like that was really the first time for him where he was like someone died in front of him, right? And it was someone that he wanted to be friends with, and he wanted to help, like, to save from Mahito's grasp, and to like bring up that old scar right after he watched Nanami die. I like wanted to punch the screen. It made me so angry. But even though I didn't fully understand exactly how they were doing things, I still was very into the fight scene because I thought it was really well done. Very interesting back and forth. Yuji is definitely acting on anger, and I think that in some cases that can really help you kind of go to another level when you're fighting someone as strong as Mahito. So I'm interested to see where that continues on, because obviously we didn't get to see the end of this fight here now, like it has been for this entire arc essentially. So really, really good. Also to ditto what Brian said, just what these animators are putting out with the circumstances they are in. I hope they understand. I know they're still tweeting that they're embarrassed and that this isn't what they envisioned, but I really hope that they understand that these fans are still extremely thankful for what they have done, and very impressed and find it so amazing. And we just continue to hope that, the CEO chooses to change his ways and allow for either maybe lose an anime or two that they're putting a lot of effort into, or hire some more people, or put something on a longer break. Who knows? But something needs to be done.
Yeah, it just makes me so sad that these animators even feel the need to apologize, because and this was the week that we were kind of like waiting with bated breath to see what was going to happen. Not that I ever really doubted their ability to pull through, but I was really curious to see like if it would be a noticeable difference based on the feedback that like they had offered up online. And maybe it's my untrained eye, but like personally, I still, like you, I thought it was absolutely incredible.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, the craziness of this fight, which is like the fight of Mahito is like so grotesque and chaotic again, but then there's also like contrasted with the calm and like how beautiful those scenes were that were intercut with Nanami at the beginning. It's like I personally would have never known. So hats off, of course, to the animators. And I don't know if anyone listens that is an animator, but if they ever do, just please know that at least we 3 have your back, and we're not alone. There's a whole host of people that are just so grateful to get to watch such an incredible show every week. So hats off. As far as the fight itself and like the storyline, I do not like Mahito. I just don't like him, and I think it's solidified again. It was solidified before, and there's something eerie again about this. And maybe there always was. I admittedly probably need to revisit season 1 and like revisit the Junpei episode, because I obviously remember what happens, but I don't remember the intricacies or like exactly what the dialogue is between him and Yuji. But there were like several of his lines that really stuck with me this episode. One being, what he said to Nanami, which we discussed, but also like here with Yuji, not only does he taunts him at the beginning when he's like screaming, like he's like, "What even are you?" And Mahito's like, "You don't have to yell, I can hear you just fine." And that's just sick. That was just like really sick of him to like scream back to mock him, and then to mock him again by using like his transfigured like technique to show him Junpei's face again to continue to mock him. But then as they get a little bit deeper into the fight, Mahito like actually does kind of answer his question and is like, I'm you, like we're the same. And that I think also carries a deeper meaning than the surface level of what that line could insinuate. I mean, I feel like the obvious answer is like, we're both murderers. Like, you think you're so much better than me, but look at what your body just did outside. Like, I know about that. And so, like, there's that level of it. I think it goes deeper than that, personally. I have some theories about Yuji that maybe I'll save for another time, but I think it's very interesting that we haven't technically seen his curse technique yet. And I'm very, very curious about what it's going to be and how these curses that were instilled upon him by people that he loves might come into play with that, and how it might actually end up being the antithesis of Mahito, or maybe it is the flip side of the same coin.
I think
No,
he's
go
the
for it, Brian.
embodiment of hate of the bad, because Mahito hates all things that are pure, like light and love. He's the antithesis of that, where he's the hater, if you will, of all things that are dark, cursed, and like the protector. Whereas like he's the angel, Mahito's the demon.
Yeah. I'm interested by the soul convergence as well, and like as far as I know, this has like nothing's been confirmed or denied in the manga. This is still purely speculation on my end. But since we're talking about Yuji and how interesting he actually is, you know, because like Mahito has this ability that's this convergence, but like it results in these deformities and these entities that are really hard to reckon with because their souls are rejecting each other as he tries to merge them. Yuji, in existing, is kind of the opposite of that, in that he is now one with Sukuna. And even though Sukuna is like this terrible, awful, probably the worst possible curse that you could converge with, like he's done it seamlessly. So it's curious to me that Mahito says we're the same. So I don't know. As much as I don't like Mahito, a lot of his lines have really weighed on me this episode.
Yeah.
Theories, just theories. Hopefully we'll continue to see and learn more, but it at least makes it very interesting. But of course, as this fight is coming to an end, what Yuji doesn't know is that Mahito had split himself into two entities in a prior episode where we saw him like split off from the rest of the gang. And so now we're seeing like the other half that he split into, and it's kind of ominous. We see Nobara now preparing to face off with Mahito in a darkened alleyway, and she launches an attack that kind of leaves a mark, but it's not enough to exorcise him. Nobara's technique is also really powerful. It's really, really cool the way that it works. And we've seen her have success in fights before. It's been a little while since season 1, but very recently we just saw her go up against Haruta, who kind of got the better of her. And I feel like Mahito is way stronger than Haruta. So what do you guys think? Do you see this fight going well? Do you think that she can outpace, outperform, or outsmart him?
Not really. I think Nobara is very, very strong, and I think that she's a total badass. And I think her potential is amazing as well. I think she has a lot of talent. I don't have a good feeling about this fight at all. I think in a few years she might be able to go toe-to-toe with Mahito, but I don't think she's there yet. She is only a first year after all. Like, her abilities are strong, but it's kind of like Megami. You know, we've already established that Megami is incredibly strong and possibly strong enough to even fight Gojo, but he's not there yet. They're first years. They're just starting out, and that's how I feel about all the students, is just their abilities are amazing and that they can get to those places, but this is too soon. This is too early for them, and it very much worries me for her future. For the next episode, I can't see any way where she like can take him down in this situation without help from others at some point. But they're all fighting their own battles right now, so it's like there's not really anyone that's around to help. So to be continued.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, Nobara did, work with Yuji on taking out Tosa's brothers in season 1. So I definitely feel like that was a really important moment for her growth, because she was able to use her soul resonance or hairpin technique. And that was really cool. I love, the concept of her straw doll technique. I love those things. And I think it's a really interesting thing. However, kind of going off of what Hannah said, there's no way. I'm sorry. Like, we just saw how Yuji, who being the protagonist has just a higher elevated set of stats, is still like not taking him down quite so easily. I don't expect this fight to go very well unless somebody shows up for her. And even at that, who's left on the team? I've said that once before, but I'm going to say it again. Megami is literally on the ground, like half dead. Yuji is literally already in a fight with Mahito Part 1. Now you got Mahito Part 2 over here. The principal, I don't know if he's stepping in. Panda and what's the other guy's name? I don't remember the other guy's name. He's not even that important. We don't know where they are. It's an absolute shit show right now, and there is not a lot she can do except do her best. Give him the old razzle dazzle.
Not the razzle dazzle. I don't know. I personally don't feel super great about what's going to happen, but also who knows? We might not get the instant gratification on next week's episode because they love to do that to us. Although I do think it's likely that we probably will end up seeing the fight between Nobara and Mahito. It may not open that way though. I don't know. It's hard to say. They've definitely led us astray before, so we'll have to see what happens next week. On that note, we are just about at time. Does anyone have any final thoughts? Cool. All right. Well, then let's go ahead and transition into our favorite moments. I will go first. There was a lot that I liked about this episode, and there was plenty, of course, that I don't really like as well. I think that I really loved how they expanded upon Nanami's death compared to the manga. And, we mentioned this, but it's only like 2 or 3 panels of him reflecting. So the way that they were able to bring a little bit more peace to his ending was slightly more satisfying for me as someone who really, really did not want to see this. Because he's just like the least deserving out of almost anyone. It's like, how come like Mei's still okay somewhere and like this has to happen to Nanami? And, I don't know. It's not fair. And that makes the world that Gege has built more interesting, unfortunately. But I do think that they tried to make it as gentle as they possibly could for us, and so I appreciate that.
Yeah, I think my favorite scene probably was watching Mahito and Yuji come out of the block. I felt like it was a really good parallel to kind of demonstrate what Emily was talking about earlier about how Mahito was saying that they are the same. They were walking in parallel with each other, and they just both were like looking at each other the exact same way. It felt very planned and very purposeful in that sense. So I really liked that because I felt like it drew some parallels between the characters.
I had 0 favorite moments. All I know is pain.
Hey, that's an answer too.
JK. It is hard for me to pick a favorite, and it's not necessarily because of the normal, like, oh, I loved everything about this episode. Like, it was really, like, genuinely a tough episode to watch for me. I think the fight between Yuji and Mahito would stand out as my favorite, not as like a specific thing. Just I'm a girl who likes good action, and I also love very emotionally driven fights. I think those are way more something that sucks me in a little bit more when characters are very driven to fight because they like want to avenge someone or something like that. So I'll just say the whole fight against or with Yuji and Mahito, because outside of that, I genuinely can't pick a favorite because it was a very, very difficult episode to watch.
It definitely was. Definitely was. And we are going to miss our sweet 9-to-5 man. But maybe we'll get to see some flashes of him because I feel like we haven't been spared from seeing the ghosts of characters past in this show. That is certainly a theme that's been set up as people returning, so who knows? Maybe we'll get to see some more of Nanami at some point in the future, or at least flashbacks to scenes that he might have been in. They've definitely done that in other shows before, so we'll have to find out in future episodes. Pain, all I know is pain.
Ufotable loves to give us flashbacks of Rengoku every second they get.
And I will take and eat up every single one of them. So,
yes, me too. We're gonna get more too, believe me.
Oh yeah. Come to mama. On that note, we can't forget about this week's Shibuya secret. And I'm actually going to diverge a little bit from what we have on the outline here. I think we can save this one because I just was so struck by Mahito this episode that I want to talk a little bit about that still. So, Mahito's name apparently translates roughly to true person, is like the meaning behind Mahito. That's also just so interesting to me because all these interesting lines that he's had this whole time, it makes me really want to go back and watch some of those earlier interactions to see what the lines were. Because again, he's really likening himself to like being exactly the same. And so I'm still unclear on exactly what he means, but true person is really interesting because also we saw like in Jogo's final moments, he was saying something to the effect of like we're the real humans. You know, like as much as they hate us, like we hate them, like they're killing us for no reason the same way that they feel about us. I don't know. Mahito's a really, really interesting character, and so I think that the meaning of his name was very purposefully chosen. Just another thing to keep in mind.
I can confirm Hito is a word for person. As soon as you said that, I was like, oh my god, of course. I've had to use it many times during my class, so.
Oh my god, thanks for pointing that out. I should have known that too.
It's pretty cool. But on that note, that's definitely all the time we have. So let's keep the theories coming in next week's episode. I'm really eager to see what's going to go down and how these fights are going to continue. But that's all for today. So thank you for joining us, even though this episode was mostly pain. I hope you enjoyed regardless and that you will come back next week.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. And of course, we can't forget to come back around to our sponsor, Tokyo Treat. We're so glad that you joined us today. And we're so glad that we have Tokyo Treat as our sponsor for today. Make sure that you guys visit the link in the bio of this actual episode because that's where you'll see you can go right to the Tokyo Treat website. Don't forget to use code Hashira so that way you can get $5 off your first box subscription and then you'd be able to help support the show.
And if you do get one, let us know what your favorite snack is. We're definitely pretty excited to dive right in. So thank you again for joining us. We'll see you next week.
Umai?
Umai.
Umai.
Yo-imo.
Yo-imo.
Yo-imo.